In this video, we are finally bringing back my army, the Sisters of the Old Blood, and Dave is gonna make me some custom bits for it.
That's right, this video is sponsored by MSI and their Prestige 14 Evo series of laptops. And using them, I'm gonna be designing up a bunch of custom bits so we can really start to take Sisters of the Old Blood and make them feel like really special.
But if you don't know what the Sisters of the Old Blood are, well, you're in luck. I'm gonna tell you everything about them. So, what are the Sisters of the Old Blood? Well, it's a custom faction that I came up with a couple of months ago. I've done a few videos on them as well, but I'm gonna quickly take you through a little bit of their lore and their aesthetic style. So aesthetically, my sisters take inspiration from various places. Firstly, the game Bloodborne was a huge inspiration for their creation. Another source of inspiration was looking back at medieval armor and wear, combining these two together to make the Sisters of the Old Blood. Their namesake comes from the fact that when a sister falls in battle, they will gather up the blood of their fallen, where it is added back into a giant pool of blood, and they can be one with their sisters again. So today we want to make something really special. One of my favorite Sisters of Battle kits is the Sacrosancts. I think that these models alone are absolutely perfect for how I envision the Sisters of the Old Blood, but they just need a couple of small touches that I want to do today. Something that I thought would be really awesome is if the shields had changed into stained glass windows instead of the traditional metal shields that you can see them with. One, I think this is going to fit really well with the army aesthetically, and two, I just think it's also going to be really cool. I made a cathedral long ago and printed out some glass windows for that, and even made a shield for my knight that had stained glass window in it. For my Sacrosancts, I also want some really cool weapons, and Dave is going to go ahead and start making some for me.
All right, so I must confess to being a little bit rusty. It's been a while since I've cracked out the old Blender and got into some 3D modeling, and I'm excited to do it today on this new MSI laptop, my Prestige Evo AI 14. So shaking off the rust, I started playing around with some geometry and basically relearning shortcuts that I'd forgotten. I wanted to create a gun that made sense in the context of Jen's forces, but I also knew that Sacrosancts wielded guns behind their shields. So I needed something that had multiple shots, and inspired by Bloodborne, all I was thinking is like muskets, little blunderbuss pistols, and while these seem really cool in concept, they don't make much sense in the 41st millennium unless you have lots of capacity to reload it. So someone with a melee weapon in one hand and a gun and a shield in the other, I just think there's too much going on to go for one of those single shot weapons. So I'll save the dueling pistols for characters later on. So I'm actually gonna go away from 40K and just create a really cool revolver. I think revolvers evoke a more classy or old school style of weapon, while also still having a level of practicality with multiple rounds available to fire. I was surprised to discover that I had effectively treated myself to one of the most difficult things I could possibly make myself make. There's so many curved surfaces, and I was relearning different ways to bevel and different ways to morph and modify shapes, cramming objects together while also trying to make it functional and realistic. I don't know, I wanted this revolver to work. So technically this revolver that I've made mostly works. I think it has all the parts you need, and overall I'm actually pretty happy with it. It's worth remembering that all of this stuff is going to print at a really small scale, so I don't know how it's actually going to turn out. I may have to tweak the proportions, maybe make the barrel a bit thicker and chunkier, but we'll only find out by printing it. This was a great way to shake off the rust, and it was really fun, so I'm excited to, well, show Jen and find out what she has in store for me. Because while I make the finishing touches on this revolver, Jen is going to make a Sacrosanct so we can figure out exactly what we need and what I should make next.
Alrighty, it's time to start building my Sacrosancts, and I have two Big Sisters boxes here, which means I have a lot of Sacrosancts to make. I can make them in different pieces, use different parts, and I'm very excited. So let's get building. So I really like the way that the Sacrosancts look. I love their armor and their cloth, as well as the hooded or helmed option that you get. And overall, aesthetically, I think that they fit really well. That all being said, I don't want to make a huge amount of changes there. There are two weapon options to choose from. You can give them maces or this really cool halberd. So for the regular guys, their hand is actually attached to the shield. So when Dave 3D models this, we need to make sure that there's a gun in the shield as well. The other thing to consider too is I would love for these stained glass shields to be printed in clear resin. So we're gonna have to figure out how to make that work, and if we need to make it in separate parts. Bloodborne is all about trick weapons, so it would be really cool to try and come up with a design for a gun that fits this theme aesthetically. I was also umming and ahhing about which head version I wanted to use. I really like both of these designs, however with the helms, I would love to try and come up with another design sometime soon. So I think for this project, I'm gonna go ahead with the hoods instead.
Okay, Jen, I am done making a revolver for you. I've gone for like a Western style. I know it's Gothic, it's meant to be Gothic. sick, but I couldn't justify it because you need to reload, right? Can you imagine having a musket and a shield? It's like the lame, it's fine. You got a cool cowboy revolver. What have you found out?
So I've noticed that the hands are actually attached to the shield. So it's great you've made the gun, but it's gonna be a little bit more work for you.
Okay, so hands attached to the shield.
Yep.
Do I need to worry about like the shield clipping? Are they posing it so it's like comfy?
I think it should be fine. They're pretty broad.
Okay, so wrist mount. I'll grab the model off you and I'll have a look, but I'm gonna sculpt up some shields.
Great.
Okay, let's do it. So now that I've seen how these shields attach, it's time for me to set out and make them. Jen has wanted me to make these stained glass clear resin shields ever since she made her first one on a massive Imperial Knight Lancer. And scaling them down to infantry size is going to be a bit of a challenge. I know the top and bottom of this shield need to be clear, and I kind of have a template for that because there is a shield in the Van Saar gang in Necromunda that is similar in concept. The idea with these shields is it's not stained glass because that's ridiculous. It's not bulletproof or anything. It's actually a shield projector creating a force field that looks like stained glass. Very sisters, very nonsensical, grimdark, and I love it. So with this in mind, I wanted to make a central projector for the shield. This will be where it's attached to the arm of the sisters and will be about the size of a buckler. I start using some preliminary shapes to establish a vibe that I'm looking for, just using some primitives and some nice beveling. Once I've got a rough shape that looks like it could be the core of this shield down, I start greebling it out, creating these things loosely based off void shield generators that are my version of a shield projector. And I also add a couple of conduits for greebling as well. Even though it makes no sense, 40k is always like this. The cables are on the outside, which is just so inane, but whatever. It's a rule of cool and that's what counts. From there, I create some long struts on the bottom half of the shield and add some more shield projectors there, leaving the very bottom of the shield empty and open. I think by not framing the shield fully, it's going to really sell that idea that it's an energy shield, and this was the best way I could think of to represent that. Now, to really ape off stained glass windows, I wanted to emulate some of the designs I see in stained glass windows. So for the top part of the shield, I'm going with a 3 circles design. All of this will be integrated with the stained glass, but this just gives a nice cathedral-esque top art to each of the shields. Now I say each of the shields here because I do plan on making a bunch of variety so you can equip your sisters however you'd like. Once this design for the top part was complete, I also wanted to chuck a bit of a Baroque, almost like a fence topper on top here. And this will be a separate part that you can print separately and can have all different kinds of details on it. That way you can print the core of the shield and this topper in a non-transparent resin, but then print the stained glass elements in a transparent resin. Ultimately, this means the shields will be 4 pieces, which is quite a lot, but I think it's going to be worth it to get this very complicated effect out the door. But with the frame of the shield done, that is about all I can do without some designs for those shields. So I'm going to handball the computer over to Jen and get her to do some awesome vectors of some designs she'd love for her sisters of the old blood.
So Dave has sent through his designs that he's done in Blender so I can jump into Photoshop and start creating those shields. But before I do anything, I need to do a little bit of research and get some inspiration on how I want these shields to look. So going through my Pinterest, I found a couple of designs that I thought looked really cool. Previously, I'd gone for a cross-hatch design, but this time around, I wanted to try something different. I noticed that some of these stained glass windows had more of a tangent line. That's where 2 lines meet, and it makes more of an organic shape that glass would be cut in. When coming up with these designs, I kept that in the back of my mind to try and have these flowing shapes rather than sharp edges. I came up with 2 different designs for these shields. The first had a fleur-de-lis on the front of it, and the second design was the symbol for my coven, a giant chalice with a drop of blood on top. After doing these designs in Photoshop, I then went over to Illustrator where I could turn them into vectors. So I just went around and traced out all of those lines that I had done previously, making sure to add in the width where the 2 pieces of glass would meet and there would be the metal in between. So I'm all finished with my designs. I've exported them as SVG so Dave can work his magic in Blender.
Good, I need this.
Oh, hey!
If you're looking to get a computer for office work or for video gaming or for any creative design endeavor, look no further than MSI. If you're looking for an all-purpose laptop, the Prestige 14 might be for you. With its Intel Core Ultra 9 processor, you can ensure fast speeds and excellent multitasking capabilities on this computer. And with the new and integrated MSI AI engine, the computer can optimize background processes and performances to create the optimal user experience for you based on how you actually use use it. The Prestige 14 AI Evo also comes with a long life 90 watt-hours battery, maximizing your productivity when you're on the go. The computer also has enterprise-grade security, including one of my favorite features, which is a little webcam shutter, so the little gremlins can't watch me through my laptop screen as I dance around my room naked at night. Another great feature of MSI laptops that I love is this 16:10 golden ratio display. Many things are 16:9, and you'll be surprised just how much easier it is to work on a computer that extra bit of vertical space. With brand new Wi-Fi 7 powering the Wi-Fi on this laptop, you won't even need to think about what an Ethernet cable is. So if you want a reliable and fantastic laptop, make sure to check out MSI. The links are in the description, and they're a huge supporter of the channel. But with that said, I gotta get back to work. All right, I've got the vectors and it's time for me to make some 3D models out of them. So importing vectors is a fantastic way to get some really cool 3D models with really bad geometry. One day I'd like to learn how to fix this problem, but when you convert SVGs into meshes, the vertices go all over the place and it's not the best. Interestingly, I don't actually need the vector, but I need what isn't here. I need the information between the stained glass panels. So what I do is I use the Boolean tool in Blender to basically cookie cut out the shapes of all of the stained glass, which leaves me an object that just has that framing that goes in between all of the glass panels. Now, the idea when you paint this is it will all be printed in transparent resin. You should use inks to get the color tinting for each of the stained glass panels. And then because this will be elevated, you'll be able to get like a dark paint and run the side of your brush along all the elevated areas, and hopefully it will work. 3D printing allows you to get away with a bunch of really simple geometry issues, which video game modeling does not. So I'm gonna definitely lean into enjoying the freedoms that allows me. With all the supports added, we chuck them on the 3D printer and then leave them overnight and see how they went. I can't wait to see what Jen thinks.
So I'm all done making my model and I'm gonna go outside and spray it. And I have something very exciting to show you guys. It's sunny. It's actually freaking sunny for once. It's still winter. I can barely see, it's so bright. Hold on, let me put you down. It's sunny, it's actually warm. I have my puffer jacket on, which is crazy because it's actually really nice today. This is gonna last for about 2 more days and then we're back to rain again. So perfect day to spray some models. So let's go ahead and spray our Sacrosanct with, come on, Chaos Black. So I've sprayed up my Sacrosanct, so I'm gonna let her dry before I go ahead and paint. And you will have noticed that she has one arm. It's fine, we love a disabled queen, because Dave is currently making the other arm for me. So I'm gonna have to sort of jury rig that up, but for now, I'm just gonna go ahead and start painting her up as she is until I get my arm printed. Speaking of arm printed, we have put that print on. Let's go see how it's doing.
This is the part that's probably one of the most important parts of making 3D models, the test print. So I've hopefully printed everything out in a opaque resin. The idea being we can test fit it, we can check the scale, we can see what needs tweaking, because these things, when you design them, are never perfect on the first try unless you've kind of done similar before. This is my first time making a shirt for sisters. So firstly, did it print? No, yes, no, yes, yes, it did.
Yes?
I think, but we won't know if it printed well till we give it a wash. Ta-da! Is it too fine to paint? Let's see if it all fits together. So the test print is successful. Everything looks really good. I do think it might be marginally too big, but what's going to basically tell that story is scaling it to the hand and the gun. So that's the one part I haven't printed. I need to work on that and get that printed. I'll print up a couple more variants, taking into consideration what I've learned here. The printer is handling this super fine detailing, so it looks great. Again, it's going to suck to paint, but you're trying to paint stained glass windows at 28mm scale. You were kind of signing up for that.
That's not your problem. So with my Sacrosanct ready to go and my stained glass window shield printing, it's time to finally paint her up. I mentioned before the aesthetic or style that I wanted to paint my Sacrosanct in, and it would be completely different to how I've painted the rest of the army. And in all the research that I did for the Sisters of the Old Blood, there were 2 things that stood out for me. One was this Crusader look that had been shown in medieval times. They're often depicted with silver armor with a cream and red coloration, and I think that this looks really good. The other thing that popped up was this picture of Joan of Arc. Again, in the images that I found, she was depicted in silver armor with a lot of of white or cream tapestry. And sacrosancts I kind of consider are this sort of sub-unit from the rest of the sisters, or maybe I just like them a lot, so I was happy to try and paint this particular sacrosanct a little bit different to see what I could come up with. With all this in mind, I went ahead and started painting her up. And of course, it wouldn't be a gen model without trying to tackle non-metallic metal. Working back and forth with my light and darker colors, trying to determine where the light source was, I went ahead and started placing my highlights and shadows, and then layer painting to blend these all together. Once I was happy with my silver, I moved on to my gold, again using a similar method, but this time using yellow and cream colors. Also incorporating that teal color on the very edges. Moving on from the armor, it was time to paint up the cloth, and I had two colors to work with. I decided that I wanted the overall color to be cream and the underside of any cloth to be red. It took a couple of layers of cream paint to try and get that nice base color on. Obviously spraying my models black, I knew this was going to be a bit of a task, but after a little bit of back and forth and also putting in those shadows, I was happy with the way that this looked.
Okay, my print should be done. I've got transparent resin. I'm hoping that it works. Let's find out. Okay, we got to clean this up, but we got to be really delicate. One of the things with transparent resin is you have to use fresh isopropyl alcohol or you can stain it. You have to be really careful not to over cure that second pass of curing after you've got it off the supports because it can go yellow really easily. So I'm going to be delicate with this and give it a crack, see how it turns out.
But at this point, my model was pretty much 100% ready to go, aside from her missing hand and the shield. Little acrylic parts that we had printed up earlier, these were finally ready to go and be painted. Now, I'm no stranger to painting these up. This time around, I wanted to try and minimalize the color that I had used. Previously, I'd used a lot of pigment in the stained glass windows, so this time I wanted to pull that back quite a lot and rather add more than take it away. So using acrylic ink as well as Ard Coat from Citadel, I mixed these two together to put in the colors on the stained glass window. This time around, I only used 3 colors, red, green, and yellow. The blue that we have here at the studio is a bit too pale for my liking, so I think these colors work really harmoniously together. Once I was happy with how that was looking, it was time for the arduous task of trying to get all of this black lining in this shield. And I was truly petrified. I've never painted something so tiny and small before in such fine, intricate detail. I tried my best to make sure that the black paint was on the very tip of my brush and just gently tried to glide it over and get those raised edges. Once I was happy with how this was looking, I glued everything together and then popped her arm onto the model so she could finally have 2 arms again. And of course, with a final black trim on this model, she is ready to go and go fight some baddies. A huge thank you to everyone over on Patreon who has been supporting us through our tabletop time journey. And a massive thank you to all of our new members, including Noah, Bavarian Dodo, G. Den Whiteley, Jack Capybara, Ophir Carroll, Zendark, James Lowe, Golden Dragon Games, Clarky, Leo, and Bare Necessities. Thank you to everyone for your support. It means a whole lot. And if you would like to join up to our Patreon, all of the links are down in the description below. There are some really cool perks for joining up today, so make sure you check out the link down in the description below. Ta-da! It's all done! Yay! I really like it. It's not gonna match my other sacrosancts, but I actually think I'm gonna change it to this paint scheme because I actually really like it.
Yeah, you've completely changed your paint scheme. What is going on?
Yeah, I just want to try something different, but I really like it. So yeah, I'm gonna have to maybe repaint some models maybe.
What? Okay, so the Daughters of the Old Blood have got a different vibe.
Well, at least the sacrosancts do.
Okay,
so,
cool.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Well, it was very interesting. It was a learning experience getting back in the saddle and 3D modeling. If you liked this and would like to see more of this and this resonates, I've been considering expanding this, turning it into a pack so that people could get them for themselves. Now, it is a high difficulty bar. I'd say it's like when you buy Forge World and it says like expert resin kit. This is like a high difficulty bar. You've got to be able to paint really controlled to get those very tiny filigree, and you probably need quite a good 3D printer. So I might make some changes, make the design just a little bit thicker, a bit easier to print. But either way, it's pretty cool. Make some variants.
You could also probably print this entirely in resin if you wanted to and just paint in the stained glass window.
Yes.
You don't have to paint it in acrylic, print it in acrylic like we did. Acrylic, what am I trying to say?
Transparent resin.
You don't have to print it in transparent resin.
Yeah,
yeah, you could do it completely in just normal colored resin. But we wanted to give it a shot.
Yeah, I'd also like like to make some trick weapons, make more of the trick weapons in for infantry and do some more cool bits, some accessories, some belt items. I'd like to make some hands using that revolver. Maybe even make the revolver a little bit more Baroque. In printing it, it just looks like a Western revolver. I think adding 1 or 2 more Gothic elements to that could be really cool.
Absolutely.
But it was really fun to work on, and thank you to MSI for making it possible. Go check out MSI's laptops. The links are in the description. And yeah, we really are grateful. MSI is a huge support to the channel and a really great company. Lots of really cool products. So go check them out and yeah, subscribe or something.
But we should go get some vitamin D because that sun's still outside as well.
The sun in winter in Australia?